Welcome, Strategy Battle Gamers, to our first ever live Q&A! That's right, okay, you're here with GBHL James.
GBHL Jamie.
We're in the middle of our ton, and we're also joined by our channel sponsors, Shadow and Flame. We've got Kev Lawrence. And we've got UK Freddy Bear, Dave Fredericks. Okay, so we are going to be doing this, like we just said, in a Q&A format where you're going to put your hands up if you've got a question, and then these guys are going to pick you, ask your question nice and loud, say who you are, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. So, who's thought up some questions? None of you. This will never work. Put your hands up, you got a question? Don't be afraid to be the first person.
Go on. Well done, Sam.
I'll take one.
Samuel Jeffrey.
So what's the idea behind having the sponsors, and what will that offer us as a community?
As you as a community?
Good
nothing. No, for us to have sponsors obviously means that Jamie and I can focus more on making content for the channel rather than painting models, which I think we can both agree. How are you at painting, Jamie?
Tabletop standard.
Yeah.
If that.
So it means that we can make more content, and these guys can obviously showcase some great miniatures. And the wonderful thing I think about people being able to see a really well painted miniature is it inspires people to get involved in the hobby. I'm pretty sure you all agree that if you see a miniature that looks great, it feels like you're part of the movie or you're part of the story. Would everybody agree with that? Yeah. So that's probably what it's going to bring. It's a better showcase, and of course for these guys, it gets their name out there. And if you know these guys from the One Ring, they've been real bedrocks of the community over the last few years in terms of all of the help and advice that they're giving with painting tips and sculpting, etc. So that's probably what the relationship will bring.
So that's for the Shadow and Flame. What would be the dream project for you guys? The dream project.
For me, the entire Silmarillion.
Yeah, get some Silmarillion requests, you know, first stage heroes, and that's always fun to do. I lost count of the amount of times people have asked me to do a smell. But, you know, that's a pipe dream really. I mean, I could do one, but sort of getting it cost effective to reproduce it would be a big ask. But you never know. I might do one for myself eventually, if I ever get time, because obviously that's going to be a big, you know, time-consuming project. But I might do it on the side one day. If Games Workshop never make one, they might.
Would any of you guys be interested in Silmarillion models and stuff, sculpts, etc.? Yeah. Because one of the great things with UK Freddy Bear is that he does do custom sculpts. So if any of you, obviously it's to do with volume. If there's a big group of you who want to get that sculpt, contact him together, and if there's enough of you there, it's worth your while. How many people usually does it make it so that it's worthwhile in terms of number of models?
Normally, if I can sell 20 units of a model.
Are there 20 people here who would want Silmarillion models? Put your hands up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. Okay, I'll get started.
The next question.
Yeah. I've been using green stuff, and I'm trying to get my hands on like other sculpting materials, so that's more your part. Are there any definite materials that are better used for sculpting instead of the usual green stuff?
Yeah, well, I started out using green stuff. It's quite readily available. I've since moved over to Procreate, which is a grey putty. It's a bit more harder to find and a little bit more expensive, but I find it an easier medium to work in. It's a little bit softer and a little bit more time to work with. I find it easier to blend feather it in to what you're sculpting it over. But green stuff's fine for majority of people. A lot of pro sculptors still use green stuff. I use brown stuff, which is
Silmarillion models are out there.
because brown stuff sets rock hard, a bit like Milliput does. If anybody
Depends what you've been eating.
I'll use that if I'm using cloaks or banners. I always use a brown stuff base because it sets rock hard, which provides a key for when you put the next putty on top of that to put the folds in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right.
Damien O'Byrne.
Hi.
Twickenham.
I was just wondering, the Lord of Balrog's Gothmog, which was amazing. Have you got Can you give a rough idea of how many hours it took to sculpt and how many hours it took to paint?
How many hours for Gothmog Lord of Balrogs?
It's hard. It took me, because I kept going back to it because it's such a big project. I was slipping smaller ones in between, and I did it over about 7 months, I think it was. Probably about 2 hours at a time. So, trying to put a number on it, I'd imagine probably at least 30 hours. I thought. Because the key to sculpting big stuff like that is lots of layers. You know, you get your wire armature, and then put your bulk putty on, which I use milliput for because it's a little bit cheaper. And then you start skinning over the top and putting muscles in, and then you find details at the end. But it's not a quick thing by any stretch of the imagination.
3 days to paint, it's 6 hours a day.
Still good going. It takes me that long to paint a couple of horses. Next question. Elliot McDonald.
This is to both of you. What's your favourite of all the Rings of All the Games workshops made?
Favourite model? On the spot.
I think mine's got to be the Great Beast.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Great Beast of Gorroth.
I quite like a nice Mumakil. A nice big model, lots of scope to convert it and add sort of things. And if it's got a nice paint job with all the ropes and stuff hanging on it, I think that looks really good. I've got a lot of them at home to do. A lot of my I've got about eight. It's a lot of movements to convert.
Maybe beat that for number of kill? No? No, 8's the highest in the
No, not
world.
all mine, I'll just point out. Some customers.
So next question. Thomas Harrison.
What are your views on water-based versus enamel paints? Probably the only person in the room who uses enamel-based paints.
I don't use enamel-based paints at all.
Not
Take
at all.
too
Doesn't
long,
even
too
use
long
anything
to
but
dry.
a standard brush.
I've never used it in wargaming enamel paints. Always used acrylics. But when I was a lot younger than I am now, I used to do like model aircrafts and stuff, and obviously they come with the oil-based, stuff. I found it okay, unless you make a mistake. I find it very difficult to strip oil-based paints if you've made a mistake. They're a lot less forgiving. That's really my only comparison I can make.
So it's quite childish and foolish endeavour.
Yeah, once I grew up as an adult, I changed it.
Just the drying time for me. The enamels seem to take a lot longer to dry.
And you work quick. Nearly finished that bale in a couple of hours. Unbelievable. Other questions? Someone be brave? Thomas Macklin.
Who's your favourite, James or Jamie?
Back to the room.
Just pick one each, is the best way to go.
You can't say none of the above.
Jamie.
Yeah, James.
Diplomatic.
Who's your favourite?
Jamie.
I was asking for you.
Because he wouldn't ask.
Depends on who buys the first round tonight.
I'm on it. This is a popularity contest. I'll do it.
I don't need it.
No. No, you don't.
Depends on how many beers he buys.
Yeah, I bought a few last night. You remember that? Anybody else?
Nobody remembers.
That's the problem. Anybody else?
Back to wargaming and models. Would you ever do instead of whole models like kits, like a set of shields or something like that? Or
Yeah, it's something we've been talking about.
Been looking at it recently.
Yeah, getting a little sprue of shields, and then maybe a weapon sprue, maybe a head sprue.
What kind of things would you like to see?
Dwarf leg
Axes! All shapes and sizes.
All of the above.
elven
So,
shields?
but would you rather have like a theme sprue, so like a dwarf conversion sprue, rather than have one of each shield on it? So that's not very helpful, is it?
Kesselguard heads with a mouse skull.
What you want?
So you cut the dwarf.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There you have it, guys. Go.
So you heard there before from Dave, you know, if there are enough of you who get together, over 20, who want something in particular, it's then worthwhile sometimes to do that. So, you know, get talking on the forums, use the channel, use the Facebook group, and
Shadow and Flame Facebook group as well.
yeah, Shadow and Flame. Who here is on the Shadow and Flame Facebook group? Put your hands up. Put your hands up if you're not on there yet. By the end of today, guys, in fact, get your phones out now. Let's get it done. Next question. James Braun.
I think we'll put a little bit of a controversial one, given who I
Please
work for. If you could resculpt one Games Workshop Lord of the Rings or Hobbit model, what would it be?
I would do controversial, just considering what you're doing now, but I would do Beyond the Bear because I think it's not very good.
Have you already done one, Dave?
I'm not saying mine's better by any shape. That's not.
And therefore say that.
You can find these.
I did mine in 2008, and I can see a lot of faults with it now because I've progressed. My skills have developed a little bit, so I could probably. Well, I know I could do a lot better than what it is at the moment, but I just don't get it. I mean, we've not really seen the bear in the movie a great deal, so it might be a lot more like, you know, the movie version than what we're imagining. But I just don't think it looks very bear-like. I think it's a little bit gorilla-y from my taste.
How about yourself?
For me, probably the Watcher in the water. Lose the legs.
You don't like the legs, the insecty thing. That seems because you like that.
Oh, don't bring me into this.
Is it too insect-like for your liking?
It's just not what I had imagined it to be, particularly.
I think it's quite undersized as well. The head. It's not going to eat a member of the fellowship in one bite, is it? Like it did in the movie. So I think the scale of it's a little bit out. But then with big models, you know, kind of in itself, big.
So we'll take 2 more questions because obviously then we'll go back in and get setting up for game number 3. So 2 more questions. Go on.
With the majestic bear sculpt on the head, how did you get like the mouth and teeth kind of thing to work?
What do you mean? What, casting it?
Yeah,
or
like how
sculpting it?
Like sculpting it kind of thing.
I'm trying to think back now. It was a long time ago when I did it. If you go on the Wandering Forums and you go on my work in progress thread, I did post some pictures recently of step by step how I sort of made it up. If I remember rightly, I think I did it a bit like the Balrog one I just done, where I do the top jaw first, and then I'll add the bottom jaw sort of separately, and then just tie it in together, because it's quite difficult to get it. You know, if you make the whole mouth in one piece, it can be a bit fiddly trying to get the teeth and the tongue in. I think that's what I did.
Good question. Good question. Go on, we'll allow 2 more.
Have you done, or would you consider doing if you haven't, Ungoliant?
It's on the list.
Who would want an Ungoliant? Who knows what yeah. It's a spider.
Yeah. So we're going back again to what we were talking about the Silmarillion stuff. Yeah, it's on the to-do list, basically. So I've been asked to do it. So I'll do it.
And Quinn, you got a question?
Where are they taking the hobbits? Because I seem to have forgot.
To Isengard.
It's a good way to finish the Q&A. Thanks very much everybody for being involved. Just before we cut this video off, we're going to give out a prize. We ran a competition not that long ago, the biggest channel geek. Okay, and this was for somebody to find a secret annotation amongst videos, and the biggest channel geek there, who got in first with the correct answer, was Mr. Rob Jacobs, who's going to come to the front now to get his prize. Give a round of applause! Woo! So, this is the Galadriel Commander set, minus the horn blower. Yeah. Round of applause, everybody. There he is. So thanks everybody, make sure you comment, like, share and subscribe.
Support your hobby.
And...
Happy